English 122, Day 10, Finding and Evaluating Sources, from Writing Arguments, pages 346 to 367. To be an effective researcher, you must understand the key differences among different kinds of sources. Let's start by looking at scholarly books and journals. These types of sources have been peer-reviewed, which means that the manuscripts chosen for publication are based on a process of independent review by experienced scholars in that field who judge the rigor and accuracy of the research and the significance and value of the argument. These are published by nonprofit academic presses, subsidized by universities for disseminating high-level research and scholarship. On the other hand, trade books and magazines are for-profit publications designed to generate revenue through sales and advertising. Many for-profit presses publish highly respectable, useful material geared toward the general reader. So just make sure you're separating the trash from the treasure. Also consider the differences between print and web sources. Consider the article's original print origins for cues as to the source's rhetorical context and purpose based on the appearance, title, advertisements, table of contents, and statement of editorial policy included in the original print source. In order to understand the differences among many different types of sources, take a look at Table 16.1 in your text. Also be sure that you're using purposeful strategies for searching libraries, databases, and websites. Search periodicals for individual sources by using a licensed database. These databases index thousands of articles, and you can search by author, title, subject, keyword, date, genre, and more. When you're using databases, learn to use effective keywords. Keep in mind the Boolean terms or, and not. And will reduce your sources to sources that include only both of your search terms, or will include all sources that mention one or the other of your search terms. And if you use the word not, it will exclude one of the search terms. Also differentiate between different portions of the internet, restricted versus free access. In restricted sources, users must pay a fee to be able to access the information. Free access, on the other hand, is open to everyone and is our general internet sources that we normally think of, like Wikipedia. Once you find your sources, make sure that you read and evaluate them rhetorically. Read with your research goals in mind. Early on, you'll select more easy-to-read overview sources that will help you get into the conversation. But then as you get deeper into the research and your questions become more focused, your sources will accordingly become more specialized. Just use your thesis to determine the sources you will need. As you're reading with rhetorical awareness, ask what the source author's purpose was for writing the piece. Decide what your purpose will be in using the source for your own research. Use the questions for rhetorical analysis in Table 16.4 on page 358 of the text. Evaluate sources according to their rhetorical strengths and weaknesses. Consider the angle of vision of a text, which is the way a piece of writing gets shaped by the underlying values, assumptions, and beliefs of the author so that the text reflects a certain perspective, worldview, or belief system. Always look for both internal and external cues as to the angle of vision of a particular text. Also consider the degree of advocacy of the text, which is the extent to which the author unabashedly takes a persuasive stance on a contested position, as opposed to adopting a more neutral, objective, or explanatory stance. You want to seek out a balance between a clear degree of advocacy and a completely hidden agenda. Also consider the reliability of the information, which is the accuracy of factual data in a source as determined by external validation. You want to make sure the facts are backed up somewhere else, because sometimes facts are highly controversial. Finally, also consider credibility, which is the reader's trust in the writer's honesty, goodwill, and trustworthiness based on the writer's tone, reasonableness, fairness, and respect for different perspectives. Unlike reliability, credibility is determined from internal cues within the source itself. Also, make sure that you're taking effective notes as you're finding and encountering your sources. Taking notes encourages active reading as you summarize, record, and extract information. It also encourages your exploratory thinking as you analyze sources and write down your own ideas. You want to find a visual way to distinguish between the informational notes you take and your more exploratory critical thinking. Then, imagine how you might use the source in your research and make sure to keep track of that in your notes. Finally, understand the rhetoric of websites. Analyze the site's purpose. Who placed the piece on the web and why? Look to the navigational buttons on the website for links such as Mission or About Us to find information about the author. Also look to the domain type to understand a site's purpose. Is it a .com, .org, .edu, .gov, .mil, or more source? Usually .coms are commercial sources and therefore for-profit, while .govs are not-for-profit. Sort out the reliable, worthwhile websites from the unreliable ones. Look at Table 16.2 in your book for more help, but in general you're looking for authority, objectivity, coverage, accuracy, and currency. Keep these evaluation strategies in mind as you're finding your sources for an effective research process.